Hello and welcome to another edition of the Door 14 Hockey Podcast. I'm your host Marty alongside John.
Hi.
Do I even want to ask what that is you're
Probably not.
waving for anybody who's not watching? It completely threw me off. Apologies for the late start for anybody watching on YouTube. As usual, technical difficulties, but that wouldn't be anything new for the Door 14 Hockey Podcast. Hopefully that has been fixed, so we'll have nothing, hopefully, fingers crossed, through the episode.
You're only going to get the one this time. GB are currently playing Ukraine. It went to overtime, and Great Britain have just scored to win the game 3-2 in overtime. Goal scorer details still to come.
We got 20 seconds in before that goal horn went. Yeah, fun times. I am back after a short break last week or 2 weeks ago, and John kindly stepped in last minute and done hosting duties. So thank you very much, John.
Can we just check? Can we just check? How are you?
I am on the mend, shall we say? Not fully healed. Still a bit of pain and just poor mobility at the moment with my arm. So everything is switched from one side of the desk to the other, which is what I was also doing when I first came up the stairs. So that also was an interesting. Yeah, I kind of forgot that I had to do all of that. So, but yes, no, thank you. I'm on the mend. Just slowly but surely, and day by day. Yes, for anybody who doesn't know, I got knocked down by a car. The car hit me and knocked me off my bike, and I was quite sore. But physio started, and yes, hopefully on the mend, and hopefully I'll get back to the Giants soon because I haven't been to a game now. This coming weekend will be the 4th game in a row that I've missed, I believe, and this is the longest I think I went without going to a Giants game live. So hopefully I'll get back in the following week. Oh no, I don't think there's actually any games until towards the end of the month now. Actually, I think this is a break until the end of the month.
There's not a break, but I think they're on a bit of a road.
That's me. Yeah, they're on away games for the next few for the next 2 weeks, I think, after this. So
can we also just point out that while we're waiting for you to sort of solve tech issues and obviously put your wee man to bed, I was in the chat without going live. I was in the chat, and Anthony, as always, he was ready, and he was always on standby if we needed him. Might have actually been fun to have him on while that game was on, but I should have just launched it, brought him on, and we could have just talked GB stuff while we're waiting for you to jump on. Don't know why we didn't like to do that, but
I mean,
next time.
I mean, he's been at more Giants games recently than I have, so yeah, he probably is better to talk about that than I am. Yeah, no John or no Dave or Aaron tonight. John's here. No Dave or Aaron tonight. Dave is heading off to New York City, I think, in the morning with the family, and Aaron, other commitments. So not this week. Hopefully they're back in 2 weeks' time, and maybe we'll get all 4 of us on a podcast for the first time in a while.
Do you want
John?
Do you want to know who the goal scorer was for the overtime?
Go for
it. If you had to pull a name out of the GB roster who were announced for that tournament, who do you think probably scored that overtime goal?
I really couldn't tell you.
Come on. Who's been scoring goals in Europe for fun?
I really don't know.
Liam Kirk.
Oh, okay.
Liam Kirk with the overtime winner, 22 seconds into overtime.
Wow. Do you know what? I'm going to fully put my hands up and admit that I completely forgot that was happening. That's how removed I have been over the last 2 weeks or so.
You're just as well that I remember the podcast was on, because this would have been incredibly loud for me to be doing this on my phone from Murrayfield.
John, I think without further waiting, let's get stuck in to period 1 of hockey and quickly catch up on all things UK hockey over the last 2 weeks. Before we get to those stories, let's start off our podcast the way we always do, by starting with a rundown of the Elite League standings as of the 5th of February 2026. Looking at the league as it stands today, the Belfast Giants sit top with 34 games played and 54 points. The Cardiff Devils are in second with 35 games played and 50 points. The Nottingham Panthers are in third with 34 games played at 49 points. The Sheffield Steelers are in fourth with 35 games played at 47 points. Manchester Storm are in fifth with 34 games played at 42 points. The Guildford Flames are in sixth with 35 games played and 37 points. The Coventry Blaze are in seventh with 35 games played, 37 points. The Glasgow Clan sit in 8th with 35 games played, 33 points. Dundee Stars are in 9th, 33 games played, 21 points. And the Fife Flyers are bottom last in 10th place, 36 games played and 18 points. John, obviously it's been 2 weeks since I've been on the podcast. Well, it's been 4 weeks technically since I've been on the podcast, sorry. And in those 4 weeks since I've been away, I mean, massive changes in the league standings for me. I mean, Belfast Giants moving to the top of the league and sitting on top of the league with a nice, comfortable margin at the moment, with 54 points from 34 games. Nottingham looking to have maybe had a bit of a slump after their Continental Cup campaign. Maybe it has hit them a bit harder than they expected to. They have slumped down now into third position after holding that top spot between first and second for consecutive weeks over the start of the season up to Christmas. What's your thoughts? How are you think standing for you?
Order is restored. As I think we kind of said in the last podcast when I had Dave and Aaron with me. We're almost kind of used to this now. As Giants fans, we're used to that slow start, that slow burn. The new guys, in particular, needing time to settle into Adam Keefe hockey. And I tell you what, when the switch gets turned on with Adam Keefe hockey, it gets turned on in a big way. They look. I'm not going to say dominant, but they look like they could go into any game and win it. Right now, they could beat any team in the league, and obviously a team at the top of the league, you'd expect that.
Yeah.
And that's what they're delivering right now. You're 100% right about Nottingham. I think for as easy as that tournament seemed on them, with the exception of the final 5 minutes of the entire tournament, they have actually had a European hangover, which I did not expect them to have. But they are starting. They're on the upturn again. I don't think you can discount them. Cardiff have just quietly retained position as well, which is interesting because I saw them pedaling down the way that they did last season, and it hasn't happened. They've stayed steadily in that sort of second, third place. They're still a big challenger for the league. Now, I know that in the last 2 weeks in particular, Sheffield have gained a little bit of ground again with a couple of wins, massive shutout against Fife, which everyone in the league was pretty happy to see. But I think 2 weeks ago I said it's a 3-horse race. I will be honest and say it's probably back to being a 4-horse race again.
Interesting. I suppose the question I was going to ask, talking about moving into, still sticking with obviously those 14 that, obviously with Belfast, specifically we're looking at Belfast, Nottingham and Sheffield. I'm going to mention Coventry in a second. We're going to talk about quickly just about your favourite tournament of the whole entire season, the Challenge Cup. Obviously given the current format of everything that's going on, Belfast Giants, moving into that kind of kicked into another gear after, and sitting in the top of the league at the moment. Good performances so far. Bit hit and miss, maybe a few overtime losses, whatever, in the last week or two. But we're moving into the semi-final stage of the Challenge Cup coming up in the next. Well, Belfast Giants have their first round of the semi-final next week in Coventry against Coventry. That's on the 11th of February, and then the second leg is in Belfast on the 18th of February. But if we look specifically at the Sheffield Steelers and the Nottingham Panthers, given the current form and the current, what we're looking at in terms of like how they're kind of performing overall, do you think it changes the picture a bit in terms of what that semi-final is going to look at when you've got Sheffield versus Nottingham? You've got the first game on the 18th, and then you've got the second leg in Sheffield on the 25th. What's your thoughts on that, given the current form?
I mean, current form, they're both 4 from 5, 4 from the last 5. Biggest rivalry in British hockey, apparently. And listen, they play each other almost as many times as we play Dundee in the season. So I honestly think it could go either way. Net minding for both is very good, although I would say the Steelers have had the ropier time of their netminding recently. I would never discount a team like Nottingham, who have the likes of Kevin Carr and oh my goodness, the other netminder whose name is Grandy, Jason Grandy, who are sitting in there. The Steelers very much heavily rely on Greenfield. I don't know that they've got the secondary netminding from McAdam. Certainly not from Oldale, as far as Brits are concerned. But both teams are running dual imports. So,
Mm,
I mean, as are some other teams now, as it turns out. So, yeah, it's the flip of a coin. Like if both of their matches went to overtime, I wouldn't be shocked. Put it that
yeah.
way.
And actually, our next podcast, if I'm getting it correct, our next podcast falls on the 19th of February, which is the day after Belfast's second leg. So we'll know the outcome of the Belfast versus Coventry game, or Belfast versus Coventry matchup. At that point, so we'll
The
know
middle
which is.
the middle to end of February, and we're finally going to know one of our Challenge Cup finalists.
Oh, I
Isn't it
know.
amazing?
It's
What an
amazing. I
incredible
know.
competition.
I know. And obviously then we'll wait and see for the following week for Nottingham and Sheffield, which will be the week after the podcast goes out. So it'll be the week after that we can talk about it. Let's move on to let's keep a wee eye just again on the standings before we move on to our first story. And we'll look at the mid and bottom end of the table there, if you don't mind, John. Obviously we're looking at 5, 6, and 7. Manchester, Guildford, and Coventry. I mean, it's tight there, points wise, they're not too far from each other. Glasgow sitting in 8th with 33 points. I mean, do you see much differences going into the? Do we feel? I know it's only February, and we've still got all of February left to go. March still, and maybe a week or so, or a week or two in April. So I know there's still a few weeks, about 8 or 9 weeks left. I mean, are we saying kind of where we're seeing these teams at the moment, and that those bottom teams, Dundee and Glasgow, do we think that's the final, sitting 8 teams moving into playoffs?
100% yes.
Okay.
Dundee and Fife are not making playoffs. Let's
No.
just say that right now. I said it before the debacle with Fife this last week, that the statement from Jamie Russell, their head coach and now GM, saying that their two latest signings, one of whom I don't expect to see back again, but we'll come on to that. The statement he had that those two signings could get them into a playoff spot was just nonsense. It was a guy who knew he was about to be announced as GM. It's a guy who is fighting for his coaching and business life. He's trying to drum up interest in that team at that point, and trying to get bums on seats to make sure that he's got a budget to sign players going forward for next season. He doesn't, let's not make a joke about it, he does not believe for a minute that Fife are going to make playoffs. Of course he doesn't. He would have to be daft to consider that Fife are going to make playoffs. Dundee are still in with a very, very outside chance of going for it, but I just don't see it happening. I don't see Glasgow having a collapse to the point that either Fife or Dundee are going to catch them. When you look at the middle of the table, though, I think Manchester are in a bit of a no man's land to themselves. The last podcast we had, Guildford, Coventry, and Glasgow all sitting on the same points, same games won. Now, Glasgow have dropped back. The other two have progressed on. They're still tied, games played, and number of points. Manchester, I think, are still, especially with that overtime win over Sheffield, I think they are still one to watch. I think they can potentially clamber back up, and if Nottingham, Sheffield, or Cardiff have a run of losses, I could see Manchester climbing up to 4th. And if they get into the top 4, that makes the playoff split really interesting when it comes to who plays who going into the first round of playoffs. Now we're talking about it at the start of February, and we need to start seriously looking at the playoff ramifications. You need to start looking at what those matchups are, because that's what the teams from 5th place down, actually that's what the teams from 2nd place down are playing for right now. The team in 1st place is playing for the trophy.
Yep.
Teams down from there, they're playing for position for playoffs. That's what's on offer for those guys. So very interesting table actually this season. Nobody's running away with it. It could still fall to any one of 4 teams, and I think there's massive potential shifts to come in playoff positions.
Yeah, 100%. John, that's kind of the rundown of the standings. So let's get into what you were alluding to in relation to that bottom of the league, the Fife Flyers. Let's talk about that because that's going to be our main story for, let's be honest, for this period and for this episode. This week, for anybody who doesn't know or isn't from the UK or has been living under a rock this past week, there is a lot of controversy surrounding pathway and annual Pride Night. What we'll talk about now is facts that we know. It's the information that we know that's out there. It's based on all of the information that has become available. So none of this is hearsay or us surmising anything. This is clearly what has been put out there, and this is what we're going to talk about. So the Fife Flyers annual Pride Night, they plan to obviously wear a usual rainbow design jersey for LGBTQ plus fans. It's a fundraiser for local charities. The charity in question was the Hive Kirkcaldy, but just hours before puck drop, the team announced that a last minute change, players would only wear the Pride jerseys during warm-ups, then switch back to their normal strip for the actual game. The Flyers said that this was to respect the personal beliefs of players of the team on the team, but the move immediately sparked criticisms from fans and community groups alike. At the centre of the storm, we now know, is 41-year-old forward David Booth, a former NHL player who now plays for the Fife Flyers. And according to multiple reports, Booth refused to wear the Pride jersey for warm-ups, citing his personal or religious beliefs, and ultimately skipped the warm-up entirely. His absence from warm-up on the night became such a focal point that online discussions were started, where some observed saying it didn't really help the team's decision either because it just looked really bad. Backlash was swift. The Hive Kirkcaldy, the LGBTQ charity set up to benefit from the jersey auction, walked out of the arena in protest, saying they had not been informed about the changes in advance and partial gestures wouldn't be good enough. They also had mentioned as well in a follow-up report that they actually weren't aware at the time that the money being raised was going towards them. It was kind of like a weird decision that was made, but they weren't made aware of it, and that was a decision then they put out as a joint statement with the Fife Flyers, which comes later. They basically believe that diluting the visibility around LGBTQ plus sends the wrong message, and that's what the Fife Flyers were doing by not wearing the Pride jersey when they said they would. In a separate twist then, Booth's wife, Ashley Booth, made her own public comments on social media, pushing back against the club's apology, accusing the Flyers of siding with an angry mob over their employees. She also suggested her family had been targeted online and appeared to shift blame onto the charity. Again, nobody should become a target of hate. We'll completely agree with that, and we'll make that very, very clear right now. If that is the case and her family were targeted, that is not right, and that should not have happened. But the statement itself drew both support and criticisms from different sides of the community of hockey. Flyers then subsequently issued a more fulsome apology, saying that they got it wrong in how they handled the situation, and they reaffirmed their commitment to the inclusion, a rare admission for them. So they basically made a sorry apology that wasn't really saying sorry. It was kind of like we did this, and if your feelings were hurt, your feelings were hurt. It wasn't really a heartfelt apology. Then I think all the backlash that came from that first apology, then they were like, okay, look, hands up, we made a massive mistake. The episode itself has sparked massive debate about how sports teams balance individual beliefs with visible support for LGBTQ plus inclusion. I mean, John, this whole situation was messy. Like, I mean, something. I mean, we've seen, like, let's be honest, we've seen it in the past. We've seen it in the NHL. We've seen, previous seasons in the NHL, which is why things maybe changed there, where they had cited basically players' beliefs and they stopped doing certain parts of the Pride Night, and they stick that, like the tape and stuff was all kind of done away with in bits and pieces, and only players who wanted to do it were required to do it. And then the NHL put out I suppose a blanket thing across the whole of the league to say Pride jerseys will be worn during warm up, and that it will respect and honor people's beliefs and blah blah blah. I mean, this became messy so fast.
It did, and let's be totally clear, it was entirely avoidable from all sides. There are multiple people at fault within the Flyers organization for what happened. This is not down to one player in particular and their choices. Now, their particular sway may have had an impact. As I said earlier, Jamie Russell said in his statement, I'm not suggesting that he's the one who's made any of the decisions, that we don't know the details of exactly who made what decisions. But Jamie Russell said that these signings of David Booth and Mila Lucic, both of which have been controversial, who would have thought that a few weeks ago that one of those signings in particular would be more controversial than the other one? Like, we didn't see this coming. But the pressure that he's put that position under is he or someone has felt that David Booth had to ice. Now, his wife's statement is that he had offered to sit out. We had some information come to us as this all broke from people in the know, let's say, that the previous stance within many organizations within the league has been where someone had a differing personal opinion or view when it came to Pride and did not want to wear the Pride colours, they would sit out the game. That was the official manner in which it was dealt with. How that's been communicated, how that has all fallen through in Fife, we have no idea. Whether we ever find out, I don't know. It's become incredibly messy. Once again, we see there's no news like bad news, and the league is back under the local, national, and international microscope because of what's happened in Kirkcaldy. It's incredible that all the Elite League drama this year has happened not 15 miles from where I'm sitting right now.
Yeah,
It's just as well we have a correspondent in Fife, isn't it?
exactly. I mean, it was, I suppose, when it first started coming out and things started saying, was start drip feeding out the information about what was happening. I mean, as soon as I seen that, I think it was one of those ones where as soon as you went on to like the Five Flyer social media post, and as soon as they were putting up anything new at that point, you could just literally see the counter and the ticker just going up and up and up and up and up. You could just see the comments coming in.
And look, that's why they've turned off comments now on these. Now they've made the point in their most recent statement that anything that their social team or that the organisation deems to be hate speech will be reported to Police Scotland, and rightly so. So it should be. Nobody is coming out of this looking good. To be honest, it's even one of those situations where there are multiple podcasts that cover this league. A number of them, including a number of the big ones, have stayed away and haven't even gotten into the conversation about this because they know that they open themselves up to potential criticism depending on what particular stance you take. For me, pride is important, visibility is important, and allyship is important. I, from a personal perspective, understand why it should be part of what we do. For the last few years, I've really loved what the league has done by making it an official league. Used to be a week. It's been 2 weeks this year because of the fixtures, I think, to make sure that every team had an opportunity to do a home game. Imagine if they'd done it with just 1 week and Fife didn't have a home game. We could have avoided all this mess. But for me, it's an important part. I, on this podcast, was incredibly vocal. I was one of a number of voices on this podcast who were very critical of how Belfast managed their first Pride years, because they handled it incredibly poorly. Now, not as poorly as Fife did, but there were still questionable choices were made around it. How we can go so many years down the line and people still can't learn the lessons just bemuses me. How someone in Kirkcaldy didn't look at the decisions that they were making and think, this is going to cause some conversation online. It's just mad. Now, one thing just to point out as well, the vitriol online has gone a bit mental. You can be annoyed at the particular stance of someone. You can be annoyed at the way in which a team has conducted itself. What it should never become is a personal attack. You said it before. There should never be personal attacks at people, their families, or anything broader against any particular community or anything. There is a well-known social media site here in Fife, which is supposedly all about car crashes and traffic reports and stuff, but it's known that it covers quite a lot of other stuff. Even they've got stuck into this week. Like, it's just gotten completely out, maybe understandably so, out of control. Like, people feel very strongly on either side. And that's fine. Have your opinion, but I think to close my diatribe on it, be very careful what you put online.
100%. 100%. And I know, I think, as you kind of maybe mentioned, before we kind of got into the story and we kind of were talking about, um, Fife Flyers move and the whole comments that were made about, they're hoping to move in towards the playoff spot. And if, the two signings, the two big signings they had, obviously, is David Booth is one, and Nucci's been the other. I think the whole conversation obviously had been, Booth had been performing pretty well for the Fife Flyers, and it was pretty impressive. I think I even said in one of the last podcasts that I was on that he was quite an impressive signing, and that I felt that he was overshadowed. His signing has been overshadowed because of the Lucic signing, and actually what he'd been doing for Fife was actually a lot more, impactful.
Listen,
but as you clearly said,
alone in that. You're not alone in that, because even I was saying before all this was Booth potentially deserves the opportunity in one of the top 4, top 5 teams next season. Let's be totally honest, that guy's never playing in this league again.
No,
there's been no official word. He is never going to put on an Elite League jersey again.
I mean, he got injured. He got injured, obviously, in the game, and went off during the game. Some people saying that it was, it was like repercussions of his decisions for the whole thing. But yeah, as he went off injured, the whole talk has been, and obviously with comments and stuff made from his significant other, the talk is, that it's probably very unlikely that he will return as a player to this league, as you say, John.
I mean, there's a very strong feeling. Now, again, nothing's been said officially. He may not be in the country. That's what's been suggested, is that he may already be gone.
And listen, as Anthony's put up in his comment here, I'm just going to read it out just so that it's mentioned. No opinion is unworthy of critique and examination in public if you make it public. I stand by every word I said on my show last night. Booth can hold his view, and I will criticize him for it. 100%. Everyone is allowed to have their view, whatever that view is. And they rightfully so can have their own views, and obviously our views are different from his, and that's how the world works. But as you say, we'll still stand. We'll stand by our. Sorry, go ahead, John.
Yep, I totally agree. And do you know what? If I wasn't in the middle of this house renovation, I had access to my jerseys. Let me put it this way: I'd be wearing my Pride jersey tonight.
Yeah, I would have been, except I put on my my Canada jersey today because of obviously start of the Olympics, and I thought that was quite, yeah. Anyway, let's move on to our next story. Our next story that we have was the fact that it was the news this week that the not unsurprisingly, we kind of knew it was coming. We kind of heard through the grapevine, but it was officially announced this week that a new ice rink and concert venue will be built in Trafford. The venue, Trafford City Arena, will offer ice skating lessons and sessions, as well as hosting concerts, screenings, immersive experience, and become the home of the Manchester Storm. The Manchester Storm will relocate from their current base in Altrincham to this ice arena, and it will also be managed by Planet Ice. Say with an intake of breath. The state-of-the-art rink will host up to 3,000 people, making it one of Planet Ice's largest UK venues, and promises to offer a year-round program of entertainment and community activities. It is built on the former Soccer Dome site in Trafford City, next to the Snow Centre, Trafford Golf Centre, David Lloyd, Fies Soccer, iFly, and Paddle Club. Just for anybody who knows any of those things, I don't know any of those stuff. The new venue will join a number of other developments in that area, including the £450 million Therme Manchester Wellness Resort, which is currently under construction. The date, I believe, was given for roughly construction expected to start in spring and take up to about 15 months to complete. So we are talking
months, so they're expecting 27, 28.
Yes,
Manchester potentially moving in.
Yep, 27-28 season hopefully will be played by Manchester out of this new complex in this new arena. It'll be interesting for Manchester to move into this more purpose-built, more modernized arena. I mean, Altrincham is one of the ones you haven't been to, John. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Altrincham is quite dated. It's cold. The only way, the only thing, the only thing, the only I think the only arena that I found colder than Altrincham was Edinburgh, was Murrayfield. But yeah, the few times I've been in Altrincham, it's pretty cold. And I mean, I think if you're going to talk about Fife Flyers, their parking situation. I mean, I don't think the Altrincham parking situation is just as bad as Fife, but there is definitely room for improvement when it comes to the parking there. So hopefully this will all have bespoke parking and stuff and make things a bit easier for crowds coming into Manchester, coming to Manchester Storm games. What's your thoughts on this, John?
It's great to see investment in the game. I know a lot of people have questioned the Planet Ice involvement, but clearly Trafford City Council are looking at it in terms of, we don't have the expertise to manage the ice and to manage the business end of things. So therefore, we need Planet Ice to come in. I'm assuming Planet Ice are probably investors in this venture as well. But the traditional issue will still stand, is it's fine to invest in the building, but you have to invest in its upkeep as well, because that has been the problem with almost every Planet Ice venue across the country. You just have to look at the ones that have been closed, either temporarily or permanently, because nothing was spent to maintain them. So you would like to think that in it, whatever lease Planet Ice have got with Trafford City Council, is that the upkeep of it will be a major part of it, that Planet Ice will have to continue to invest in the site and in hockey. What's interesting for me is, I was just looking, because I don't know Manchester that well, is they're moving not a significant distance away. They're still in the southwest of Manchester, but it's going to be roughly 4 miles closer to the city centre, which can only be a good thing. And it's going to be an increase in seating capacity of around about 600. So that's because I'm right. It's 3,000 seater that said, wasn't it?
Yes, 3,000. Yeah.
So 3,000 seater right now. You've got the Drizzle Dome, is it Kyle Bond Arena? I think is its other unofficial name. Roughly seats about 3,100 with space for another 300 standing. So to move to one of these more modern, I assume fully seated venues will be quite interesting, because it's not going to put it on par. It's going to put it roughly on par with Coventry, roughly. As far as seating. So, and I've seen a lot of comments. Like, I put out a quick video just kind of explaining this. Now, I put out some other stuff from the last podcast whenever we talked about the Dublin or rink or arena, because it's in the process now. It's had its investment. It's also had the IIHA have put their backing behind it just in the last week as well. And that's roughly 5,000 seats they're talking about for that one. And a lot of people saying sort of opposite to me. I said, well, aim big and maybe fail, but try and fill those seats. Don't do what Cardiff did, and not leave yourself room to expand.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are saying, walk before you run. And do you know what? Maybe they're right. Maybe 3,000 is a doable number for Manchester. And look, an extra 600 seats, if they can get sellouts, that's a good chunk of change coming in to potentially invest into that team as well. So, look, here's hoping it all goes very well. And in a year and a half's time, or 2 years' time, roughly, we get to go to a brand new barn in the Elite League.
Fingers crossed. You'll just have to try and make sure, John, then between this time and the 2 years that you get to Altrincham, so you can take off that one.
That's right.
One last story, I think, for this period, John, and it's over to you.
Oh my God, is it? Yes, it is. So we have just had confirmation that the Ben Bowns testimonial date has been set, and I've completely forgotten the date. It's in my TikTok video. I think it's the 30th of June, off the top of my head. So the 30th of June will be the Ben Bowns testimonial, and I did have a quick image there of the testimonial logo as it will be presented. Merch is starting already to be produced. There's some kids merch I think was released in the last couple of days, but the Cardiff Devils announced the date of it as the 30th of June. 20th of June.
Yeah.
Plucked. Here, I had a zero. I knew there was a zero in it. I managed to pluck that little nugget out the back of my head from those TikTok. Do you know what? There's my notes from when I did the video. It's right there. It's right in front of me.
I thought it was interesting. I thought it was interesting that it is a Saturday, but I guess it's in the middle of it's in June, I suppose. Maybe they're just looking at it from that point of view. But I did think it was quite interesting. Being a Saturday night that the puck will drop at 5 p.m. I just thought that was quite a change of early start for a Saturday.
That's because, and do you know what? Fair play to them for doing it, because it's a testimonial game. There'll be all the fun that goes with a testimonial game. I would assume that'll last like 2.5 hours. It just means more time for drinking after the testimonial game. That's
true.
Exactly what they're talking about.
Yeah, true, 100%.
There you go.
Okay, we have one penalty box, so we'll move on to our penalty box segment for period 1 before we move into period 2. Let me just find a little button here for that. Our penalty box segment then is just a roundup of any fines, bans, or any important hits that have been made over the last 2 weeks, and especially any decisions made by DOPS. John, I'm going to hand it over to you for this one.
Yeah, so we've got one down on there, but we've had a few have actually been handed out. We've got Jimmy Olgeny was fined for unsportsmanlike conduct. Sorry, for his what the league called unsportsmanlike gestures to the Dundee fans. Now, apparently there'd been chirping between a Dundee fan and Jimmy Olgeny during the game, and he then gave the fishing gesture. I mean, is that? I get the league want to have an air of professionalism around the conduct of players and everything. Is that really justified to have DOPS weigh in on this? I'm not entirely sure it does.
I mean, to be honest, I think that's weak. I genuinely feel that that's a really weak decision for them to make a decision, for making that, for picking that out as an unprofessional manner and in terms of what he done. I just think, when you look at it and you kind of, I think I've seen someone made a comment online, and it wasn't even a Cardiff fan. I think actually it was Belfast Giants fan. I think I seen, I made the comment about just, it felt a bit like almost a bit of a, just a really what's the word I'm looking for? What was the wording they used? I can't remember what wording they used, but it's a bit of a soft, it's a bit of like an overreaction to something that was a really soft kind of gesture. I mean, he went fishing, for because obviously he scored a goal, and obviously there's probably a bit of banter going on from the crowd at the time, and they were probably maybe making some comments and stuff and whatever. And it's just one of those things it's a bit like if you think back to the time whenever Conway, for example, was getting stick for things, and then when he scored his goal, he went over to the Sheffield Steelers side of fans and kind of really I suppose overly exaggerated his winning his goal in front of them. It's just like a in your face type thing. I mean, I didn't see this as being any different from that. Did you see it from any other way?
No. He was going off the ice. It's not like he went over and tried to have a fight with the guy. It was chirping on the ice. I'm not the biggest one to say that the game's getting soft, but if they're fining players for giving back in a non-physical, non-aggressive, non-demeaning way, basically he was saying, "I've gone fishing, I've got you." The game's gone if players can't chirp back. It's just mad. So yeah, I'm not for it. I'm not for these sort of decisions.
We should also mention, I know you mentioned there, John, there's a couple of DOPS decisions. The Cardiff Devils also being slammed by DOPS as well for Department of Player Safety automatically fined and suspended Cardiff Devils number 44 Tyson Helgeson for being assessed a fighting aggressor, major and mandatory game misconduct during the final 5 minutes of the game this past weekend between the Northern Panthers game on February the 1st, and that means it's an automatic suspension for him. So that was one that DOPS, obviously it was an automatic one that DOPS have made a decision on, and I think there was one more
There was
Yes,
the
was.
other one. The other one's more interesting because the Brett Ferguson same game against Nottingham, and the video of this one has been going all over social media. It would have been bigger had it not been for the absolute meltdown in Kirkcaldy. Um, Brett Ferguson was given a 2 minute minor for boarding. And now I think, is it on Kevin Carr? So Carr's out of his crease to collect the loose puck. Sorry, it's on Zek. Sorry, it's on Zek. So there's a mess up behind the net. He gets it on Zek. Sorry, this isn't the video that I thought it was. I'll come on to the video that I thought it was. So basically, you've got a boarding one. So you've got a second 1 game suspension for Cardiff. So they've got 2 players suspended going into their next game. The next one for me was the biggest one, the one that wasn't a penalty. And I don't know who it was, but somebody ran Carr during that game. That video has been going everywhere. Now, when you talk about running a goalie, this is textbook running the goalie. He pummels into him. Like, there is no attempt to put the brakes on. Nothing. And the fact that nobody in Nottingham has asked for supplementary discipline on that one is mental, because
Yep.
that's a massive potential. Now, hang on. I'm going through this in my head, and I think I've got that wrong. It wasn't. It was against Bouncy. That's why Bounce isn't playing with GB. He got injured.
Right.
So I've got that mixed up in my head there. It was against Bounce. So it was a Nottingham player against Bounce, I think. And there's been no supplementary discipline. And that was why. This is why Ben Bounce isn't in Murrayfield with GB now. And that's why one of the young lads got called up to GB.
That would make sense.
You can tell
But,
I did my research on that.
It's been one of those days. Don't worry, buddy. It has been one of those days. Yeah, I
But
mean,
anyway,
I don't
Dops, listen, regardless of all those, let's just have it out again about Dops, because the rulings are inconsistent again. The fines, we don't know what they are, we don't know how much they are, we don't know where the money goes, and the videos have disappeared again. I get that there is a time and money that comes with putting together a video pack like they've done, but they did it for Garrett Hunt. Now, admittedly, that was a 6-game ban, so obviously they've got a threshold now where they will do a video, and below that they won't do a video for it. Why? Why can't we get clarity across all of them? Why can't we get some sort of standardization? If we have a DOPS decision, we should get a video. I'm sorry, but we should. Now, amongst many other things we should get from this league, we should 100% be getting clarification on what the fines are, what the tiers of the fines are, if there is tiers within the fines. More importantly, I want to know where that money's going and who's paying it. Are the players paying it out of their salary, or are the teams paying it? So is it a team fine, essentially? So if a player does something, are they being fined and the team is covering it, and that money is going into the playoff weekend pot for the senior management of the league to go and sit in one of the private boxes in the Nottingham Arena and have a few drinks? Or is it going towards player safety? Is it going towards youth development? What is it? What is that money doing? Like, it's a nonsense that we don't know. And actually,
100%.
one thing just to mention. So I've been keeping an eye on social media. I've been keeping an eye on one thing in particular. So we've seen they haven't fully launched it, but they're out in the public domain. So I'm going to talk about them right now. Is we have a Great Britain Ice Hockey Players Association has soft launched. We're told that they're going to launch formally in the summer. This is one of the things that I want that player association to seek clarity on, because they say they're there for the protection of players and other professionals like referees who are playing and need that unionized protection. We should get more clarity, because love it or loathe it, the NHL Player Association and others managed to get us clarification on what league decisions are made and why they're made. That's why we have things like the NHL player safety announcements when we hear that someone's getting a hearing or someone's been fined. The biggest thing is we get told how much they're fined. because that clarity comes out, and that's through the collective bargaining agreement. Now, what I don't expect is we're going to get an Elite League lockout anytime soon, but I really hope that this player association launches properly. I hope some of the players and officials, I hope they latch onto it. We still to see the detail. I've asked to see the detail. They've told me they're going to launch in the summer. We've been asked if we can make it. We can come along to a hard launch, which is great. So if we can manage that, I'm sure one of us will probably try and do that. So yeah, hopefully there's a bit of oomph coming behind the players soon with this player association. So that's definitely something that we'll be keeping an eye on.
Yeah. 100%, and maybe we'll get some more transparency in that in the coming, hopefully maybe in the next year when that player association maybe does kick in, if it does have the capacity to do that. John, I think that is it for our penalty box segment for this. Yeah, let's get stuck into period 2 then, without any further wait. Period 2 is a roundup of stories then from across the pond. Usually this is Dave's period, so he's not here, so I'll take over, John, and I'll do this one, if that's okay. We'll start off as we always do, and period 1 we'll look at the NHL standings as of the 5th of February 2026. We're starting over in the eastern side of the country and the Atlantic Division. Tampa Bay Lightning sit top with 54 games played, 76 points. The Montreal Canadiens are in second, 57 games played, 72 points. And the Detroit Red Wings are in third with 58 games played, 72 points. In the Metropolitan Division then, the Carolina Hurricanes are sitting top with 56 games played, 76 points. The Pittsburgh Penguins are in second, 55 games played, 68 points. And the New York Islanders are in third, 57 games played and 67 points. The 2 wildcard spots currently held by Buffalo and Boston. Down over in the other side of the country, in the western side of things, and in the Central Division, Colorado Avalanche sit top with 55 games played, 83 points. Minnesota Wild are in second with 58 games played, 78 points, and the Dallas Stars are in third, 57 games played, 77 points. Pacific Division, the Vegas Golden Knights are in top, 56 games played at 66 points. The Edmonton Oilers are in second with 58 games played at 64 points. And the Seattle Kraken are in third, 56 games played at 63 points. The 2 wildcard spots held there by the Mammoth and also the Ducks. John, obviously I missed last podcast. Dave and Aaron were on that podcast, and I haven't been on a podcast with them probably in about 6 or 8 weeks anyway. What was their take in terms of both their teams? Well, I know both their teams have been performing pretty well to this point. Obviously, Philadelphia maybe have slumped down a wee bit more from where they were the last time I was on the podcast. And Toronto Maple Leafs are up in the 4th spot, just underneath the wildcard spots. But Dave must be over the moon with Minnesota's current performance in the 2nd place there. Did he mention that?
He did. He's very, very pleased, and I can't wait for them to inevitably collapse and give up their position to the resurgent Nashville Predators, who have gone from holding up the entire NHL at the start of the season to being just a few points, 4 points off a wild card now. Which is wild when you think the news that came out of Nashville this week of the departure of Barry Trotz in the upcoming season. So he's going to step back at the end of this season from his role as general manager, and then will officially retire fully the following season, allowing for crossover with the new GM, exactly the same way that David Poile did with him in Nashville. So very interesting times coming in Nashville, but the team is on a rise again, which is really, really good to see. But when we get to the latter stages, we all know the West. We keep saying it. It's like the little catchphrase that we have for the West. It's an absolute bloodbath. There is still every opportunity for the Preds to make playoffs, which I would love to see.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose the one thing to take into consideration is the fact that a few teams, we've seen it over the last 24 to 48 hours, a few teams have been jumping in to try and bolster their rosters. A few trade moves happened over the last few days before the Olympic break, which starts today. So the last NHL games, as of recording, we're sitting on February 5th, Thursday, February 5th. So the last NHL games are being played tonight. for before, and that's going to be a 2 week break then until Wednesday, the 25th of February, with the regular season. We'll start off again with 8 games being played. In that gap in between those 2 weeks, they have you in those 2 weeks. Basically, there's a clause basically in place that there's no movement, there's no switches, there's no trades, there's nothing going to happen in the space of those 2 weeks. So that is a point where they can't do that. So a few teams are making that move now before that break in play, and then as you say, John, come that start off in February 25th, the trade deadline will be coming up and stuff quite soon after that. Teams will be bolstering towards playoffs, trying to add to their team rosters, and that should be an interesting to see which teams are going to try and make that run to see if they can kind of maybe move into those positions. Nashville could be one of them, as you say. They're sitting there, fourth place ranked fourth in the wild card spots. Very very close to those wild card spots. I mean, you're talking a matter of points away from hitting those 1-2 spots. I mean, it's going to be an interesting few weeks coming up to see who does make a run for it, to see if they can kind of change their fortunes going into that, or which maybe think to themselves, you know what, no matter what we try to do right now, even if we bring someone in, we're close, but we know we're not going to get to that point, so maybe starting to look at fresh for what are we going to do coming up for next season.
Seeing as you talked there, obviously there's the Olympic clause. The players are starting to depart to head over to Milan Cortina. Will we just rock into the Olympics?
Yeah, 100%. Let's go into the Olympics.
Let's rock into the Olympics. So let's just start off with the biggest elephant in the room, which is the rink. The organisers of the Olympics have finally... Whoops, I didn't realise that was still up there. I'm trying to get the right one. Don't look at the jerseys, anyone. I thought I had a slide of the Olympic rink. It turns out I don't, so never mind. If you're watching the video podcast, just delete the last 15 seconds from your brain. They finally admitted that the rink is not going to be fully ready. So the playing surface is ready, even though it's too small. But a large number of the ancillary rooms, the other parts of the building, will not be ready. And we're not ready, let's be clear. We're not ready for the start of competition, which was yesterday, Wednesday, the 4th of February, when the women's games kicked off. Now, we say the women's games kicked off, but they actually didn't fully, because Team Canada had their game with Finland postponed because of an outbreak of norovirus in the Finnish team. They're it struck the entire team, and they were unable to play. So that's now having to be rescheduled, and the rest of the games are still sort of kicking off. To go through, I can go through I was actually trying to get the results from yesterday, but I can't get them. I think that was maybe the only game was supposed to be that one, and it was called off. So today, and I'm only going to do the next couple of days. I'm not going to sit here and tell you about all the games that are upcoming. Today, Sweden beat Germany 4-1. And these are all women's games to start off with. I'll tell you when the men are starting in a second. Italy beat France 4-1, and the US beat Czechia 5-1. Tomorrow, again in the women's competition, we'll see France take on Japan and Czechia take on Switzerland. Jumping forward, we will next see Canada. They are scheduled to effectively now start their Olympic campaign on Saturday evening, British time. And they'll play Switzerland. Now, the men's competition doesn't officially kick off until after the opening ceremony, and that won't be until the 11th. So a good few days, another 6 days until we see the men finally kick off. That will start with Slovakia and Finland and Sweden and Italy going at it, but we won't see the big guns really kick off until the Thursday the 12th, when we'll see Canada take on Czechia and the US will take on Latvia. Obviously, it's an Olympic session. There's a massive team missing. They're banned. We will not see Russia compete at these Olympic Games. So there's no Olympic athletes from Russia this time. They're just completely banned. They won't be competing. So take your pick there. But over the next week or so, the Olympic ice hockey really starts to ramp up.
Yeah. Just going back to the rink disaster, obviously we've been talking about it on this podcast. It feels like for months leading up to it, we knew that there was issues with it. The NHL went over a number of times with their concerns about how things were going. And I seen a clip this week of from I think it was maybe yesterday or the day before, where they have the chief ice master overseeing the Milano Cortina Winter Olympics is a Canadian ice expert called Don Moffat. So he was overseeing the construction of the ice surface of obviously this new arena. But if you get a chance to watch the video of him laying the ice and talking about ice, it's a very interesting watch because he his ignorance of geography is very very clear.
Is he
In the part
American?
of he is Canadian,
Ooh,
but his assumption that basically that about Europe. Europe as a country, it's an
nice.
interesting thing. It's again he talks about it as a country, and you're like, right, okay, because he talks about how hockey maybe isn't, he basically insults hockey out in Europe, basically saying that ice all over Europe is crap. And that it's in no way near. Okay, yes, maybe nowhere near as good as NHL standard quality. Okay, fair enough. But he just kind of blanket put across this whole thing of like how they're so inferior and blah blah blah. And I was like, oh my god, this is so
Is
bad,
he?
like so
I
bad.
wonder, is he the sort of guy who, like, he's been wearing skates longer than he's been wearing shoes. You put him on a standard NHL rink and he could go board to board without firing himself into the end. Maybe that's what he did. Maybe nobody told him that the rink was a bit short and he went to skate end to end, had his head down looking at the ice, and he just pummeled into the boards at the far side. And that's what's got him annoyed. My favorite part of it is, we're starting obviously now to see fan footage and fan videos and photos coming out of the arena in Milan, and a lot of people questioning the rink's like 4 foot shorter than NHL size, but there's more than 10 feet of space around the entire rink before you get to the seats.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
everyone's saying, my favorite one was like, I'm no engineer, but I'm pretty sure they could have fitted a standard NHL pad there.
I did see a thing today, but I think it was maybe from the figure skating rink rather than the official hockey rinks. It was a Zamboni going around the ice and Snoop Dogg hanging off the Zamboni. It was a real
Yeah,
thing,
yeah,
Zamboni.
yeah. He was a torchbearer.
Oh, okay.
He's been touring with the torch. I think today. Um, so obviously the torch is still in its procession because we haven't had the opening ceremony. That doesn't happen until
Tomorrow,
I think
Friday.
tomorrow.
Yeah,
Tomorrow, Friday.
yeah, that's it.
So yeah, like, he obviously he loves ice hockey. He's never out of LA, and apparently he loves the Olympics. So I think it was years ago he did like this random thing where he did the alternative Olympics commentary, and since then he's just been like massive when it comes to like sports, ice sports, and commentary. So I cannot wait until we see some Snoop Dogg commentary on Olympic ice hockey.
Yeah. Let's move on to our next story, and our next story I'm going to move on to is the story. Actually, it's just released today. Literally, maybe about an hour or so before we went on to the podcast. Story has dropped that top NHL draft prospect Gavin McKenna has been arrested on assault charges. McKenna has allegedly punched a victim in the face and broke his jaw, and he was released on bail after he was arraigned on Wednesday. Gavin McKenna, the 18-year-old top prospect for the 2026 National Hockey League draft, was arrested on felony assault charges on Wednesday following a aggravated assault, harassment, disorderly conduct altercation in State College, Pennsylvania, according to the complaint that was received. McKenna, who is from Canada, is a forward on the Penn State men's hockey team and is currently ranked number 1 in the NHL's 2026 draft prospect. The NHL draft is set to take place in June once the current season finishes. The hockey star had been released on a $20,000 bail, Pennsylvania court documents have shown, and and according to the complaint, street cameras captured McKenna punching the victim twice on the right side of his face after an exchange of words between the group of people McKenna was with and the victim's group. John, I mean, it's very unclear. It's unclear what the fate of McKenna is going to be with the NHL draft coming up. Something like this, simply they'll try and put it down to youth naive youth and blah 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 blah, and they'll probably put it down to something along those lines. But I mean, this is this doesn't look good for someone who is down as the number one prospect for the NHL draft this coming year. I mean, this doesn't look good at all moving into that. I mean, when you look at the fact that the victim underwent surgery to repair his jaw on Monday, and his jaw is wired shut for about 2 weeks in order to help repair the damage.
You say it doesn't look good, but it's amazing how different the conversation has been online around this because of the circumstances. So because they've said that this person that he's punched was harassing his mum, a lot of people are actually backing McKenna on this one. And are saying, if someone was in my mum's face, I'd probably punch them in the face too. It's flying in the face of everything that we've said around controversial signings over the last sort of few months, let's say. Obviously, the two things are not comparable. It's like comparing an apple and an aircraft carrier. But yeah, I think I read something that if he's found guilty on all charges to the maximum, he faces potentially 20 years in prison. So that would certainly delay his entry to the NHL. I don't know how good the prison hockey systems are and what team he would potentially join. You would imagine he'd be bloody good, though, and probably a good bit better than most of the inmates there. I did see that comment from Anthony as well. Is this the new generation of the Broad Street Bullies?
Punching randoms in the street should be dressed differently.
Starting with Gavin McKenna. But the other one I've seen is that I think the projected first round or first pick is likely to go right now to Vancouver. So everyone's saying, oh, this guy found out he's going to get drafted to Vancouver and just went out and started punching people to make sure that he's not going to be available for draft pick or possibly to move himself down the list. He's going to have to stop scoring goals in that case when it comes to his draft position.
And the fountain of knowledge, Anthony also throwing in this after your comment there, John. Famously, Detroit played a prison side
off the top of their head
in the prison in the 40s. Who knows exactly? I mean, that's.
I can't remember what I had for breakfast, and he knows that.
Anthony, my question to you sometime is going to have to be like, what important knowledge have you pushed out of your head to have this knowledge in your head? It's a bit like John. I always talk about John, and I always say to John, like, if you talk to John, John can pull out random Simpsons references and random Simpsons facts, which always really, like, anytime you ever need a situation, John has a Simpsons reference to it, and it always amazes me. But I always say to John, like, what is it you've put, like, what have you pushed out of your brain in order to have all of that Simpsons knowledge in your head? It's just,
let me just go make sure that I've got both kids in this house.
But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, as you say, John. I mean, I suppose if given the situation, in terms of what you said, in terms of the whole mum situation and everything else, and if there's a back in there, I mean, it'd be interesting to see where the NHL falls on this when the whole picture becomes more evident. But I suppose you can't really look away from the fact that there was a violent aggression and also possible charges linked in with it. So that's going to have to be taken into consideration. But anyway, we will see. I don't we don't have anything else at the moment. We have one penalty box segment story to talk about. So what I'll do is I'll throw on the little video for that, and we'll talk about the penalty box for this period. All right, the penalty box segment for period 2 mainly dominated by this one major story, and I felt that it fell into this category rather than falling into the main period. But that is this is the story of this week. I think it was yesterday. It has been announced that Penguins' Caleb Jones has been suspended for 20 games following a violation of the PED policy, which is the Performance Enhancing Substances Program. The terms of the NHL and the NHLPA Performance Enhancing Substance Program, it means that Jones, 28, who's in his first season with the Penguins, has been found guilty of violating the terms under this agreement, under this program, and as such, he will be receiving a 20-game ban for that. Jones said through a statement released by the NHL Players Association that he believes he was exposed to a contaminated substance while undergoing exosome therapy from an outside provider. I don't know what exosome therapy is. Do you know what it is?
No. So I've been panicking because I read this earlier and I was like, someone's going to expect us to know what exosome therapy is. So I did what any man nearing 40 would do, especially Aaron, and I asked ChatGPT. So I asked it to explain exosome therapy in 100 words or less, like I have no idea what it is. And here's what it said. Exosome therapy is a treatment that uses tiny particles naturally released by cells called exosomes to help the body heal. These particles carry messages, in brackets, proteins and genetic material, close brackets, that tell other cells how to repair damage, reduce inflammation, and regenerate tissue. Instead of adding new cells, exosome therapy delivers these helpful instructions to boost your body's own healing processes. It's being studied for things like joint pain, skin rejuvenation, hair growth, and recovery from injuries.
Interesting. He continued on with his statement to say, "While I did not use prohibited substances intentionally or for performance enhancement, I understand that players are responsible for everything that enters their body and accept the discipline imposed by the program." Jones said, "I'm sorry to have let down my teammates, the Penguins organization, and our fans." I mean,
there's nothing else to say except 20 games off. But to be fair, he's got wonderful skin and a full head of hair.
Exactly. As you say, John, there's nothing really else to say on that. I mean, it's a clear-cut decision made by a violation, a huge violation, and yeah, at least it's refreshing to see that the violation is for substances that are not related to recreational drugs for a change. But yes, interesting. Contaminated substances makes it sound like you got, what was it? You turned off before.
Walloped by Novichok.
Yeah, that's it for the penalty box. That was the only story we had in there, and I thought it was worth mentioning because it was a big ban. So, John, I think that's it. We'll move on to our period 3 and finish off this podcast.
Period 3 is our general Knocky News. Knocky News is for anything and everything else in the world of hockey that doesn't fit neatly into Period 1 or Period 2, and generally is where we like to talk about jerseys. So, there's nothing else for Period 3, so let's talk jerseys, shall we? We are now at the end of the Elite League Pride season, but we do still have a couple of Pride jerseys to look at. But first, some of the Elite League teams are starting to drip feed us some jerseys for February. What happens in February? Well, Valentine's happens in February. One of the first ones to drop was the Sheffield Steelers. They dropped these, I think, earlier this week. And Marty, for me, they have done one of the big things that I really like when teams do it, is they've got a theme. It's Valentine's. The clear colour for it is pink. They've gone with a simple format, which is black and pink to make the pink pop, but then they have saturated all of their sponsors with the pink. Congratulations, Sheffield. You win Valentine's.
Yeah, I mean, these aren't bad. I mean, as you say, they've went. Yeah, they're not bad. They're surprisingly not terrible. I like, as you say, John. I like that the fact that they have alternated the sponsored numbers and the sponsored things, either pink or black, and I like that. It matches it really, really well. And you know what? Even with the hearts on the sleeves, it's not overly done. It's in there, and I mean, these are going to be loved. People are going to love these, and yeah, it works. And I think they're fine for Valentine's jerseys. You can tell they're Valentine's jerseys, which I always say, if you're going to jump in on a theme, make sure you know what the theme is, and you can clearly see that this is what they're going for. But yeah, these are pretty good.
One of well, actually, no, sorry, I'll mention this after we come on to the next one. So we've had another Valentine's jersey as well, and it's the Dundee Stars. This fails in every aspect that I mentioned that the Steelers did well in. It's also I'm really really sorry, but D'Souza looks like an Undertaker like wrestler cosplayer. Somehow, like the lighting for this photo set was just awful, and also the fact that so much of the photo is taken so high above the player's head. There's so much space. Like the cropping on these is awful. Like, let alone the jersey. The jersey's terrible. The biggest thing for me is all the sponsors are just slapped on. There's no attempt to alter colors and everything else. Now, what I want to bring up is when I did a video on this on TikTok, we got one of my favorite ever comments on a TikTok video. Someone called Hagen. I've no idea if you're a hockey fan, if you're a Dundee fan, or whatever. But this comment just completely tickled me because of the attitude that swells from it. Some teams don't have the control over the colouring of sponsorship on their jerseys. Maybe be more mindful of teams' capabilities. No, I don't care. If you're not allowed to change the colour of your sponsors' logos, make a better deal with your sponsors. This is Dundee's problem. I'm not going to be mindful of their capabilities. I'm really sorry. I'm not trying to troll this guy, but oh my god, what a comment.
Yeah, I mean, that's just that's not a good. That's a poor comment. I mean, that's yeah. I mean, you should have more control over it, no matter what. I think you should have the ability to kind of maybe have that in your thing to say it has to suit our image and what we want it to look like. And I'm sure sponsors really probably wouldn't mind even if it's just a one-off jersey. I mean, yeah, this looks awful. It looks hideous.
They're terrible. They're absolutely horrible.
Really, really, I really don't like them at all.
Do you know what my biggest gripe with it is? I get what they've tried to do with the heart. Where is the Dundee Stars in this?
Yeah.
I know it literally says Dundee Stars, but if you literally have to say it, your design has failed.
And even then, Dundee Stars is hard to read. I mean, I mean, no offense, but yeah, it's hard to read. It's awful to read. I don't like it at all.
It's just brutal. I'm really sorry to whoever did the socials for this, but the little tool that looks like a little square that has little corners on it, it's called the cropping tool. Please use it. It's almost as bad. Do you know what? Do you know the only other team that bugs me more is Cardiff? Because see, when they release a new jersey, they don't put images out, they put videos out. And look, I will continue to put really low quality screen grabs on this podcast of your video if you don't put HD photos of your jerseys online. That's just the reality. Sorry, I kind of blacked out there for a second when I was having.
It's okay. I seen the rage. It's okay.
Let's move on. Clan. Well, it was one of his. Disgusting. What's wrong with the Clan?
It's I mean, it's Valentine's. I'll give. If I'm going to put anything out, it screams Valentine. And I suppose some of their I mean, it's pink and it's got hearts. And some of their sponsorship has changed to white. I suppose that's half of what you like. But no, not for me.
It's brutal. It's not as bad as Dundee's. It's still awful. I wouldn't buy that to turn it into toilet paper because it'd be far too expensive. Let's be fair, toilet paper's cheaper. But yeah, I mean, yeah, Anthony, it's better effort than their Pride jersey, sort of. Yeah. At least at least it's not stolen clip art.
100%. That's taking a positive, John. Yep, 100%.
Yeah. We do have another couple of jerseys. This time from the NIHL. This is stunning. I don't know what it is about it, I love, and I know it's breaking my big rule about sponsors, but I really love the design of this Milton Keynes Lightning Pride jersey. I don't know what it is, but I really, really like it. And their number 14 is on for an online raffle, and I'm so tempted. So tempted.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I'm not sold on it.
What's throwing you
I
off?
don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I like the stripe. I don't know if I like the stripes. And I think what really kind of upsets me is the uniformity of the like the stripes and how they move. So like if you look down, so you've got the stripes that are going across, and then within those stripes on the Lightning jersey, you've got the hash marks to kind of maybe make like a like the make them diagonal, whatever else. And I think it just hurts. I think it just it's an it, I think my brain gets hurt and annoyed by the fact that it's not there's no uniformity in any of that, and I think that kind of that kind of triggers me a bit, and I think that's really put me off it.
That triggers you. Um, yeah, I get it. The Oh no, I won't stand for that. I won't stand for this comment, Anthony. Considering how naff the retro jerseys were, I loved it. I loved the retro jersey. We had it on the podcast last time. I genuinely loved it. It was so old school and it looked like a sweater, like not a modern hockey jersey. I
Mm,
loved that retro jersey. I think maybe I like this because it's unique, because it's not something that someone's tried before. But yeah, um, maybe I just got too hot on it too quick. One that I do think is very good and one that I think you will like, Marty, is the last one that we've to look at, and that's the Romford Raiders. Very clean. Yes, again, the sponsors have been very much uh, kept with their colours, but actually, I really like the simplicity behind this design. I like the dot work along the waistband and up the arms, and I like how they've just simply gone with the rainbow colours on the numbers and around the neck. I think it works. Some people might call it lazy design work, but as far as the white Pride jerseys go, I think this is one of the nicest ones.
I would agree. I also like the Raiders logo in the middle. It has the rainbow colors around it as an outer line as well, which is pretty nice. I agree. It's a simple one, but it stands out on the white, and it's very effective. And yeah, as you say, the collar looks pretty good, and I like that it's incorporated all aspects of the LGBTQ plus community, including transgender and bi as well in there, which is pretty good to see.
Yeah. There we go. That's all the jerseys that we've had in the last couple of weeks. And Murray, that pretty much rounds out period 3 as well.
That rounds out period 3, but that means it also rounds out this podcast for this week. That was a good one in terms of short and sweet, but covered quite a bit. It was good to be back and kind of get back into the swing of things.
We were running late, but sounding great.
Exactly. And hopefully by in 2 weeks' time, hopefully we'll have Aaron and Dave back with us on the podcast, and we can get a proper catch up. If you are new around here and you aren't aware, this is our podcast. Our website is door14hockey.com. We have the QR code up in the corner. And I know, John, you were getting a lot of stick for this, and I'm going to defend you on this. The QR codes are up here for a reason. The QR codes are here for anybody who's going to be watching us on Facebook or on Twitch. Not everybody's on YouTube, as Aaron kind of tried to accuse you whenever we put up the YouTube one. So there is a reason for this up here because it's on all the social channels. Door 14 Hockey Podcast is our website. You can get this episode and all of our previous episodes on there. If you haven't done so already, you can follow us on YouTube. This is a QR code for YouTube. You can check out this podcast, other podcasts. Hit like, subscribe, and hit the bell and all that kind of stuff. Or hit subscribe and the bell, and get notifications for whenever we post videos. I will put up my hand and fully admit that my videos have went by the wayside the last few weeks because between sickness in the house, getting knocked down off my bike and injured, I just haven't had a chance to get back to do videos. And I hope to have something fresh and new in the next week or so. But
honestly, anyone of this current generation would have footage of their crash. I mean, it's just lazy that you don't.
Yeah, I apologize for not having a camera on me. Maybe I should think about that if I ever do get back on a bike again. But
Absolutely.
yes, this is our YouTube channel, so don't forget to hit subscribe and all that good old stuff and all those bits down here. And lastly, our UK, our social media is on this QR code. So we're on all of the usual social media channels. We're on Facebook, X, uh, Blue Sky, TikTok, but you can catch up that catches there. And don't forget to, if you are on there, don't forget to join in the conversations, drop us messages. We love to hear your thoughts and opinions, and we like see you getting involved. John does some great work over on TikTok, so check out those videos over there. It's pretty good stuff going on there. So if you're not, some people think they're too old for it, but you're not too old to go on to TikTok and have a watch of some of the videos. Some great content over there. We are a podcast first and foremost, and we have been for the last 10 plus years. So if you haven't done so already, head over to your podcast provider of choice, and don't forget to review, hit subscribe, like whatever it is on your podcast provider of choice. All of that does help us in the long run on the algorithm. So please do that. Thank you. That is it for this week. All that leaves us to do is to sign off for this episode. I'm Marty.
I'm John.
Have a great